Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So, what I'm going to speak about is drivers of profitability on beef cattle farming and where have we come from and to what extent can we continue to improve those key drivers of profitability. When I initially set out to look at these profit drivers, I was going to look at 4 or 5 different key drivers that affect profitability on beef farms. But really in the context of a 15-minute presentation, there's only a couple of things that we can really dwell on. So if we look at it from the point of view of profitability, the key issues are how can we reduce production costs? And looking at production costs, really all of our research revolves around maximising lifetime performance from grazed pasture. Even though we'll have seen presentations throughout the year of the impact of fertiliser cost increases on the cost of grazed grass, you still have a relativity. Grazed grass at 1, grass silage about 2.5 times more expensive, concentrates about 4.5 times more expensive. So regardless of the increase in costs for all feeds, grazed grass and achieving maximum performance from grazed grass is absolutely essential. And we need to have long grazing seasons, good lifetime performance. In terms of suckling systems, what we want to do is calve compactly in the spring so that as cow demand increases and indeed as calf demand increases throughout the season, we turn out to pasture. We have a highly nutritious, low-cost feed and we want to get our cows on that system as soon as possible. Of course, we have some very efficient, specialised autumn calving systems, but by and large, spring calving is the lowest cost way we have of producing beef. Efficiently producing replacements. We do need to provide replacements. Something in the order of 16 to 18% is optimal in terms of genetic progress. So we do need to be efficient. My colleague Colin Bourne will speak a little bit about age at first calving. I'm going to touch on it here as well in a few slides on. But reducing the number of replacements we require. If we require more than that 18%, up to 25% in some herds, obviously that's a cost and a reduction in output on our farms. Probably in the context of other enterprises, beef is the enterprise where you need good quality winter feed. So we do need to optimise performance, and that's not maximising performance. We do know about the phenomenon of compensatory growth, so we don't want to maximise performance during winter feeding periods, but certainly for that first winter and the second winter, if you're going back to grass for a third season, you're looking at 0.6, 0.7, 0.8 kilos a day. Anything more than that, we have plenty of research to show that the animals that perform better will lose that weight advantage come the middle towards the end of the subsequent grazing season. Of course, that's only half the equation. The other half is output value. And we need to be very clear about output value. The number one element of that is optimising individual animal performance. Live weight performance, reproductive performance, optimising individual animal performance. A lot of focus goes into stocking rate, and for sure where you have good individual animal performance, carrying more of them efficiently will make you more profitable. But the first and foremost step is having good individual animal performance. And then it's about maximising stocking rate according to whatever farm constraints you have. That might be labour, it might be facilities, it might be your own time, it might be availability of specialised skills, and indeed it might be the availability of the type of animal you want. If you're in a calf to beef system, there might be a limit in terms of the availability of the animal you want at the price that you can pay. So maximising stocking rates when you have good individual animal performance. So if we look at the key profit drivers, and this is a piece of work we carried out for our open day this year, and we looked at suckler calf, and we did the same for dairy calf to beef systems, and the profit drivers are pretty similar. So I'm just going to look at it in the context of suckler systems in the interest of time. For the suckler calf to weanling phase, the number one profit driver that influences performance is age at first calving. I'll come back to it a little bit later, and as I said, my colleague Colin Bourne will touch on it later as well. In the context of suckler weaning to beef systems, and this really is not surprising, the number one factor driving profitability is daily gain. Good daily gain in cattle production systems, and we all know this, is key to maximising profitability, regardless of whether you're in a dairy calf to beef system or in a suckler calf to beef system. And just as an aside, as part of this analysis, we also looked at greenhouse gas emissions. And age at first calving, where you reduce age at first calving, you reduce emissions, or to turn to the flip side, where age at first calving is older, emissions are greater. Looking at average daily gain, improving average daily gain improves profitability and reduces greenhouse gas emissions. So I'm going to focus on live weight gain for the next few slides, and I've just taken a 10-year trend line in terms of live weight performance for beef cattle in Ireland. I've looked at heifers, either coming from the suckler herd or from the dairy beef, coming from the dairy side of the house. looked at steers from suckler systems or from derived from dairy dams and young bulls. And you can see that, you know, from 2012 right through to 2021, we've had really, really good improvements in live weight performance. And I think sometimes we're slow to, you know, point out where we have made progress and we have made improvements. And look across the lines here. I mean, we're 4 to 5% on the heifer side, so you know that's reasonable performance over a 10-year period. Steers plus 10%, 10-11% improvement in steer live weight performance in a 10-year period. Bulls 8% on the suckler side, 1% on the dairy side. So I think it's worthwhile where we do see improvements in performance, particularly where this is one of our key profit drivers, that we emphasise that. And we try and, if you like, ascertain where that has arrived from. And look, it's difficult to break this out in terms of what drove to what extent. But certainly carcass specs, the QPS came in 2009, a greater focus on aged slaughter, a greater focus on the 400 kilo carcass, and that would have had an impact on slaughter age, so attempting to get animals into the specs at an earlier age. Herd health, we're going to hear from Natasha in the next presentation, and I think, look, again, there's some really, really interesting information I think you're going to see in the next few moments around the impact of improving herd health on live weight performance and days to slaughter. AHI established in 2009, beef health check programme, parasite programmes, calf care programmes, BVD programmes, young programmes. We've had a host of programmes that all in their own way are having an impact on live weight performance. Genetics, the Eurostar reviews in 2012, 2015, there's constant genetic progress coming from the AI stations, coming from farmers using the best bulls. BDGP, genomics coming in around that time, 2015 and 16, and then BDGP programme driving that from 2016. So genetics clearly has a role, as we know, in terms of live weight performance. All of this requires advisory and KT. We need to deliver this information. We need to get uptake of this information and dissemination. Our advisory and KT programmes, if we go back to 2009, the Teagasc Farmers Journal Better Farm programme was established. We also had European and national government funded KT schemes in the meantime. We have today launched the DB 500, last year the Future Beef programme. So there are a number of programmes, and I know the individual processors and individual organisations also have KT programmes. All of these are having an impact. Very difficult to put a value on each of those, but we know the herd health aspects, the genetic improvement, feed quality improvements, all of these are happening. Equally, we need to have KT programmes to expedite that, to get that adopted to the greatest possible extent. And finally, I suppose, producer standards, and finally, in terms of what I have here, I'm sure people can think of other things that have driven that. Borbia S-Class, so a revision of the old BQAS in 2017. We now have a sustainability beef and lamb assurance scheme, again, driving greater standards, greater focus, a little bit like your NCT, it's a torture when it comes up, but you do have to make these improvements when you know what's happening. When your BQS comes up, you do need to look at your paperwork, you do need to look at your management standards on the farm, and all of these things are continuous improvement in terms of management on farms. What does that mean? Well, I suppose improvements in live weight performance predominantly manifest themselves as earlier slaughter age. So if we look at slaughter age, again the same arrangement in this slide, suckler beef and dairy beef for heifers, suckler beef and dairy beef for steers, and suckler beef and dairy beef for bulls. And you can see in terms of the slaughter age reductions, the only one, and we do need to look at this a little bit closer, I suspect there might be some interaction with first-calving heifers on the suckler beef side. But if we look across the board, dairy beef heifers gone from 25.2 to 24.1 months of age. Massive progress on the steer side, 30 months to 26.8 months for sucklers, 29.7, so in around the 30 to 26 for dairy beef steers. That's real substantial progress. I mean, you should recognise that as an industry at farm level, the progress that has been made in terms of live weight performance and slaughter age. The same on the young bull side, less of a reduction on the for dairy bred young bulls, but certainly the suckler young bulls, a nice reduction in slaughter age. Importantly, this has in almost all categories come with no reduction in carcass weight. In fact, in a lot of cases we've seen improvements in carcass weight. So if you look at the heifer side, suckler beef heifers, no change in age at slaughter, but we are 20 kilos heavier in carcass. No change for the dairy beef. 3 kilos heavier for suckler beef. So we've a 3.2 month younger slaughter age, and no changing. So we're holding our carcass weight. It's about 3 kilos heavier. So for all intents and purposes, there's no change there. Slightly lighter on the dairy beef side, but again, over 3 months younger. And on the bull side, no change for either suckler bulls or dairy beef bulls. So, and that's a positive thing. We've reduced slaughter age and we haven't lost anything in terms of output from those animals. So what are the implications of that? Firstly, less feed. We're slaughtering animals, same weight, a lot younger. That's less feed. Facility savings, labour savings, where the animals in some cases don't need to go back into the shed again for a subsequent winter. In other cases they don't need to go back out to pasture, or they're slaughtered earlier off pasture or earlier out of the shed. Lower greenhouse gas emissions. The Director mentioned the importance of greenhouse gas emissions. We have a food vision report, we have climate targets, so greenhouse gas emissions are really very much in the front line. But apart from all of that, we export 90 to 95% of the beef that we produce. Our customers are asking us, what is the carbon footprint? What are we doing to reduce our carbon footprint? So from a customer perspective, we have to be showing improvement, and I think we have a really good story to tell in that regard. And ultimately, it's about profitability. And I'll show it in the next slide when we drill down a little bit into one of the systems. Where you slaughter early, or particularly where you retain carcass weight, you will drive profitability at farm level. So I'm going to take one example here and look at the suckler steers over a 10-year period. And you can see that's a little bit more detail around the previous slide. We've gone from 30 months of age to 26.8 months of age. So that's a really, substantial reduction in slaughter age. A little bit choppy, and you're always going to get that. Some years are going to increase slightly, some years are going to go down. You can particularly see the impact of fodder crisis years, 2013, 2012, 2018, the protests of 2019. All of these things have an impact. But by and large, we could draw a straight line through this and show really continuous and steady progress. So on the suckler steer side, we're slaughtering almost 100 days earlier. And that's really enormous progress. Similar carcass weights, as I said. Similar grading, R equals 3 equals. In fact, they're slightly better, but in the context of what we're looking at here, no change. Greenhouse gas emissions savings. If the cattle we are killing today, or in 2021, were slaughtered at the same age as the cattle, similar cohort of cattle in 2012, we would have produced an extra little over 40 kilotons of CO2 equivalents. That's a big savings in greenhouse gas emissions. It's a massive reduction in carbon footprint as well. Again, going back to the customer piece. But the most important line here from my perspective, in terms of what does it mean at farm level. This is at feed costs, and the Director again mentioned the implications of the war in Ukraine, the implications of the feed costs and so on. And don't need to tell you what's happening on concentrate price, we don't need to say what happened on fertiliser prices. But at current feed costs, that's a saving of €25 million to the industry, to the farm industry in terms of feed savings. That's grazed pasture saving, grass silage savings and concentrate savings just for that animal cohort. So it's about €100, a little less than €100 per head in feed cost savings. And that's really, really important to bear that in mind. All of these traits are profitability and farm level performance traits. So I suppose the question is that it? Have we achieved our potential, and is there much more we can do? Well, there is, and just to take one example, this is the fat class of steers and heifers killed in 2021. And without going into detail here, what this information is saying that, let's say a 2+, so 2+ is our industry standard. We want everything above 2+. So let's say you target a 3- to give yourself a little bit of breathing space in terms of meeting the fat class. 84% of our heifers are greater than 3-, and 70% of steers are greater than 3-. So there is potential there. But even more so, if we go greater than 4-, greater than or equal to 4-, half of our heifers are greater than or equal to 4-, and 25% of our steers are greater than or equal to 4-. It'll differ depending on breed, it'll differ depending on farm economics, whether it's a sensible thing to carry them a little bit over a fat class. If they're still gaining weight, you might think it's a sensible thing to do. And in some cases, depending on price movements, if it's increasing, if you're gaining a little bit of weight, then maybe that makes sense in your situation. But look at the biological efficiency of carrying animals for longer. This is work carried out at Teagasc Grange, and we looked at finishing animals over a 3-month period or over a 6-month period. Now this is, extending the finishing period pretty much beyond what you would do commercially, but it illustrates the point around biological efficiency. Your average daily gain where you slaughter over a 3-month period is 1.4. Where you kill over a 6-month period, your daily gain really drops off dramatically to 1.16. So about a 20% reduction in daily gain. Carcass gain, similar story, about a 20% reduction. Fat score in this case goes up from a 3 equals to a 3 plus. So you do gain a fat score, of course, but there's a big cost to that, particularly if you look at concentrate intake, kilograms of dry matter per day, from 10 kilos to 11.2 kilos on average over the finishing period. So what's the feed efficiency? How much feed do you need to get each kilo of gain, depending on whether you kill over or finish over a 3-month or over a 6-month period? You go from 7.2 to close to 10 on a live weight basis, or 9, or sort of 10-ish, let's say, to close to 14 on a carcass weight basis. So you're about 40% less efficient when you go into that longer, and that's an economic cost in terms of the amount of feed you require to put into that system to generate a kilo of gain. I won't go into this because I know the later speakers are going to touch on elements of this. There's a lot around live weight performance in terms of what's driving it. You know, obviously on the suckling system we want good milk, good calf rearing, particularly in your dairy calf to beef systems, but equally in your suckling systems, animal health and husbandry and so on. Good herd health will be touched on in the next presentation. I mentioned at the outset, grazing management. Grass is our cheapest feed. Good grazing management, the availability of pasture over a long grazing season. Quality forage, we need quality forage for our winter periods. Optimising indoor feeding, again I touched on this at the outset. We don't want to maximise performance. That's, from an economic point of view, is not a desirable thing to do. And genetics, we need to continue to improve genetics. We need to continue to focus on genetics and using high Eurostar bulls and high Eurostar sires. So just moving on to the second profit driver, age at first calving. So the 10-year trend, and this is the only slide I have up where there is a dairy figure in it. So age at first calving, if you look at it on the suckler side over a 10-year period, we've seen very little progress. We've gone from 31.6 to 31.3 months first calving. So there is a lot of potential there in terms of age at first calving. If we look at it on the dairy side, the age at first calving in the same 10-year period, gone from 28 months of age to 26 months of age. So there has been progress there. There might be a view that they calve everything at 2 years of age and that they always have. Certainly not. 28 months of age or thereabouts in 2012, 26 months of age now. So there's still scope, I'm sure, for progress there. But looking at the suckler side, 31 months of age in terms of age at first calving, and as I said, little change in that 10-year period. Again, drilling down a little bit more into the most recent year, 2021, and this is where I see grounds for optimism in terms of age at first calving. As I said, average age of first calving, 31.3 months of age, but there is a very obvious peak at 2 years of age. If we look at 2 years of age calving, in and around a third of our first calving sucklers calve at less than 26 months of age, and that's where you want to be, that 22 to 26 months of age in terms of a 2-year-old calving system. So if we look at any 4-month period, most of our cows actually calve in and around that 2 years of age. And that's a really positive message. Again, there's a view that we can't calve sucklers at 2 years of age. I know it's going to be covered in one of the later presentations, and I know we have a farmer speaker who will speak about his own experience doing it. But clearly the national data is showing that, the plurality, if you like, of cows calve in and around 2 years of age. But equally we have a lot of cows that calve at 3 years of age. We're in a seasonal calving system, so if you miss the boat in this spring, you're not calving in the autumn, then the next boat comes the following spring. So we have 31% of our cows calving at greater than 34 months of age, and that's again a cost in the system. The question might be asked, well, are those later calving cows, are those the later maturing breeds, and it's all early maturing breeds at 2 years of age? Again, looking at the information here, that's not the case. We have a lot of first calving cows in our late maturing breed types. So massive potential there. What would be the potential savings or gains? So I just looked at one piece of analysis to see what could be gained in terms of moving some of those 3-year-old calvers into a 2-year-old calving system. So this is the trend line in terms of the cohorts calving at different age groups in 2021. Again, you'll see the peak calving in around 2 years of age and a secondary peak in and around 3 years of age. So just in terms of a hypothetical scenario, I looked at moving 50% of those 3-year-old calvers to a 2-year-old calving system. So you can see that you're moving some of those, it's about 24,162 if we look at the national population. If we move 50% of those animals into a 2-year calving system, what would that mean? It'd move our average first calving age by 2 months. So our average first calving age would move from 30.2 to 28.2. I think that's, you know, in terms of the timelines, let's say to 2030 or thereabouts, I think that's the type of numbers. You know, we're not going to get to 24 months of age, we're not going to calve all our first calvers at 24 months of age, but we have to have some target in terms of reducing that. That will reduce greenhouse gas emissions nationally by about 50 kilotons. It'll reduce our carbon footprint very substantially, but most importantly, it would reduce feed costs by about €400 per head. So moving from a 3-year-old to a 2-year-old calving system. And if we multiply that across those 25,000 or so suckler cows, it's worth about 10 million to the industry. You know, in terms of feed costs. And these are real money. This is real feed costs. And again, I don't need to spell it out in terms of where we find ourselves this last 12 to 18 months. So in summary, Chairman, the objective is to maximise live weight performance at least cost. High beef merit genetics, quality grazed pasture, quality winter feed, appropriate to the system that you're operating, excellent animal health and high standards in animal husbandry. And I think I'm really confident looking at the data that in all of those categories we have made really good progress. I think there's more to be had, but we have made really good progress over the last 10 years. Particularly in live weight gain, average reduction in 65 days. If we look across all our categories, we've reduced slaughter age by over 2 months in the last 10 years in our steer and heifer systems and about 3 weeks in our bull systems. Massive savings here, and look, I've gone through the numbers. Feed cost savings, reduction in labour, less greenhouse gas emissions. Less progress is evident for age at first calving, but again, when I looked into the actual numbers, you know, you look at the high level numbers, and the director again made a comment at the outset, you know, that an average hides a multitude. And the average age at first calving of 31.3 or 31.6 months of age, whichever year you look at it, you might think, you know, we're really not where we want to be at. But when you break down the numbers, you actually have a very substantial cohort of cows calving at 2 years of age. So there's obviously big opportunities there, and I think there's a lot of potential to make gains in that category as well. So, Chairman, I'll leave it at that.